Hello everybody, welcome to our E3 2021 wrap-up stream. We have been on a very long road together, or at least it was a long road for me. Lots of cool shows, well, we'll get into that. Watched a good deal of shows together, saw lots of moments, some reveals, some new looks. And I usually do like 2 or 3 videos a week total between both my channels. The past week, I have done probably like nearly 20 reaction ports, like 6 or 7 streams, and 4 discussions. Been a very busy boy and appreciate your support throughout all of it. And if you... I didn't have like donations and I don't have like memberships set up on my page, super chats, but if you do feel like supporting and join the community, like Johan here is a very new member of our patron community, you can find that in the description. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the freaking stream. And we are going to talk about all things E3 today. And man, we're gonna talk about all things E3. What was our favorite moments? What we personally, I know people, the kind of banter, you know, I don't want to make it a competition, but the fun banter, as long as people don't take it too far, is who won E3. You know, people have fun talking about that. Like, what was best in show? Maybe what was like the highlight of each show. I have not scripted this in any way. This is just a raw hangout focused on the aftermath of E3 2021. But I do see Capone here, Johan, and Asaya. I'm gonna say Isa. Brandon, Dragon, Nato. Guys, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate all your takes on this. Brandon, thank you guys for being here. I need to pull up. Why do I not see you guys as a bubble? Oh, that's why. It's because I have you over here. Let me see if I can fix that. But yeah, first off, how's everybody feeling about E3 as a whole? We'll come back to that, but how is everybody feeling about E3 as a whole? I'm curious about that kind of first. I need to minimize a lot of things. I'm actually happy to wrap it up, man, because I have been in overdrive the past few days, and I need to relax tonight, and then tomorrow I go to freaking work. But let's see here. Capone earlier said, I wonder if Keebs is singing right now. Dragon says, hey, Keebs. Brandon says, hello. Nato says, what's up? Guys, thank you very much for coming by. And Capone, I'm not sure what your plan was, man. But Brandon has a first word here saying, I believe in my own opinions. Always believe in your own opinions. If your opinion differs from others, that's fine. But yeah, Brandon says, I believe in my opinions that Xbox and Nintendo delivered. I completely agree with that. I actually have one other contestant that I also think delivered well this year. But, Johan, it's Johan. No worries, I get that all the time. It's the J. I always mess that up, but that makes a lot more sense. It's Johan. Okay. Brandon, wish it could have been better, I'm assuming, for E3 as a whole, but it is what it is. Geodude, Johan, I only watched Xbox and Nintendo. And both were good, to be honest. Good to me, to be honest. Xbox was the best. It's been in years, and they finally delivered. Nato, honestly, I was a bit underwhelmed from E3 as a whole, it sounds like. Fair enough. In Dragon, E3 has been the most eventful week for me in a year, so I am satisfied. Nintendo won for me. So, before we get into kind of like each of the shows, is anybody surprised that like Xbox and Nintendo were the best shows, period? Like I want to do my best to try to rank all of them, at least what my personal take is, and I'm curious like if we could all do our best to do it afterwards or maybe before, because I don't want to just be rambling forever. But yeah, Dragon already says no, because you know, like if PlayStation was here, they would have one of the best shows too, if not maybe the best. And that's just always how it is. Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox. It's usually between the 3 of them. There was one year that Bethesda knocked it out of the park. I think there was another year that Square Enix really knocked it out of the park. But we knew that Xbox and Nintendo were going to be like the shows to watch, but I am still happy to have dived into the Capcom, Square Enix shows and Ubisoft. To me, that's really it. We'll get into the rankings, and you already know what like the bottom couple are. I also want to shout out Summer Game Fest. I do see Anthony, perfect timing. I want to shout out Summer Game Fest because that's going to be a conversation that we're going to have here as well. Because I'm personally going to put them in the mix, and just basically the past week, man. That's what we're talking about, the past week in gaming. But yeah, Anthony, does Summer Game Fest Day of the Devs count as part of E3? I'm not sure about Day of the Devs. I didn't watch that, but I'm curious what you thought of that. That was one of my favorites because there was a lot of games I really wanted to play. I did not watch Day of the Devs. There's a few events I definitely missed. I didn't watch, well, actually I watched a good deal of the Future Game Show. I kind of skimmed through Devolver Digital's. I think I watched a bit of the PC show. I've been kind of catching up on Nintendo Treehouse. There's a lot of shows that I didn't see, but I'm going to count Summer Game Fest as one of them. I'm going to count Summer Game Fest as one of them personally. I know it's not technically E3, but I mostly just want to talk the past week of freaking game shows we watched. Capone, I put stuff in this chat way earlier as if it came with the future and saw a Bandai show, so that could somehow manipulate in that way. That was my plan. I did notice that, Capone. I did notice that. I was like, what's he trying to do? Capcom and Square Enix were a waste of time. I thought Ubisoft was third best, and not in context of them being platform holders. Nope, not surprised at all. Yeah, platform holders usually have the biggest shows, but again, it's like I said in the past, Bethesda and Square Enix had really good shows. And yes, Isa's pointing out Xbox has another event this Thursday, but that's not the same. It's like the thing that Xbox is doing Thursday. It's more like an interview. People were wondering like, where the hell's Perfect Dark? Where's Avowed? Where's Hellblade 2? Hannah's here. Hello, perfect timing. Hellblade 2. Where's Fable? And this Thursday is going to be kind of like a discussion with those devs. Not to show things or to be a hype thing or anything like that, but just a discussion with those teams to like hear more about where those games are at. That's cool, but you know, that's... people aren't going to be tweeting about it or anything like that. So people are already throwing around their takes and whatnot, like Nato's. Summer Game Fest was okay, just a bit too long. I would agree with that. I think I would agree with that. Dragon, Ubisoft was third best. Totally agree with that. Well, I can't spoil. Fox, like, where's Elder Scrolls 6? It's ways off, dude. That studio, like, they literally just announced they're working on it. That's basically what they did at that time. They're like, we have started pre-production. It's like when they announced Indiana Jones this year. They literally, Machine Games announced that they just started that project. And so that's what that Elder Scrolls 6 thing was. So that game is at least 4 years out from that announcement, which was 2019? Was that 2018 or 2019? I can't remember. Can't remember what year that was, but yeah. That game is at least beyond 2023. Anyways, though. So, and I see some folks mentioning Halo looked incredible. So let's actually get into it. So let's go kind of through a few of them at a time. But first off, just thank you guys again for being here. And thank you so much for all the streams you attended. I am freaking beat. And if you want to chat about things other than E3 or just various stuff, then I encourage you to join our Patreon community. It means a lot. It is you saying thanks for all the shows that happened the past week and literally like 5 times the amount of content that I usually do. But nonetheless, let's get into, if we count Summer Game Fest and all the shows we streamed together, least to best. If I was to do that right here, right now, I haven't really like put them on. And people, if you follow me on Twitter, I've kind of put grades for every show except Summer Game Fest. Some of those grades I'm kind of tossing and turning about, but Fox says Discord is fire. Please consider being a patron. Thank you, Fox. Johan is a new member of that community, and our Halo chat has been blowing up thanks to that man. But Hannah really quick says, I didn't watch Ubisoft, Bandai, or Summer Game Fest, so I can't rate those. But the best for me in this order was Xbox, Nintendo, Square Enix. Gotcha. Cool beans. All right, so if I had to say, let's get out of the way what is the actual bottom of the list of the things that I said I would stream or do. Take-Two Interactive. It's not even a part of this list. That's our first, like, the bottom. Take-Two Interactive is the bottom of this list because they didn't have a show, and it's not on them. That's the thing. It's on us. Everybody just tweeted like freaking hi all airtime. Thanks for coming, man. Everybody was just tweeting like, oh my god, Take-Two's show was shit. But that's our fault. We never bothered to read into what the show was actually going to be, and I myself, like, I'm admitting it. You know, we can admit when we're wrong. In fact, it's a strong thing to do. But like, yeah, I didn't bother to look into it. A lot of other people didn't bother to look into it. They just saw Take-Two and were like, oh, cool. And it was not a good show. Can I actually have, let me see if I can make the stream a bit more engaging by having a little bit of B-roll up or something. Yeah, I have these logos. Why not? That kind of helps a little bit. Let's see if I can do this. Be a little bit more legit. Move this way down here. Live streams, am I right? Here we go. I mean, that's kind of whatever. At least it's something. But yeah, Take-Two was definitely like the least mentionable thing because it wasn't a show, and that's just our fault. It was an executive meeting between these guys that we never bothered to actually pay attention to it being a thing or not. So that's our fault. And it's not even worth mentioning because it wasn't even a show. So Take-Two is for sure the bottom of the list. But again, that's just because it shouldn't even be considered because it wasn't meant to be a show. That's our doing. So, but the for sure bottom of this list that I already see, Dragon going, Take-Two and Bandai Namco were really non-existent. Yep, that is the other bottom of the list. Bandai Namco. Bandai Namco didn't necessarily even have a show. It was about one game. But what's really dumb, and we're going to talk about E3 as a whole, actually, we'll get into that after Bandai. But Bandai, it was just one game. It was the next Dark Anthology game or whatever. That actually seems like a promising game. But again, this was, everybody thought this was going to be a show, and it wasn't. So I would say Take-Two Interactive and Bandai Namco are not to even be considered. That's my opinion. But let me see to go. I need to have you guys open. But yeah, if anybody has any comments about those two, feel free to shoot. But there just really isn't much to say about them. I do see Dragon though. Take-Two and Bandai were really non-existent. All airtime. Take-Two panel. Exactly. It was a panel. It was a panel. It wasn't a show. It was a panel. Which is cool that they have those because we should actually get into it now. How do folks feel about E3? Like, we had a lot of shows, but like, I don't think any of us actually dabbled into the actual E3 expo experience that happened this year. I didn't, because I would have if I was just like you guys, just watching it. But doing content, I just haven't had time to check out anything but the main shows. And like, they actually did their best to have an expo experience this year. And all we watched was like the main, you know, press conferences. That's what they used to be called, but this year the showcases. But in between, they did have that. They had panels and hosted segments and interviews and stuff, places you could virtually visit. They tried to make it an expo, and that's what E3 is. It's an expo. That's what E3 stands for, Electronic Entertainment Expo. So, yeah, that Take-Two Interactive was a part of that expo experience. But let me see what you guys are saying. Raindrop, did you have any notable concerns about Infinite? I did. I addressed them in the video, but basically it's going to be really jarring to move on from not having Red versus Blue anymore. And I wish they didn't show us the Cortana bit that they did from the campaign segment. And that's mostly it right now. Everything else is freaking solid. I just want to see Firefight and Forge. Nato's given us... okay, I'm seeing people already say their listings. Dragon says least to best. Square Enix, Capcom, Summer Game Fest, Microsoft, Nintendo. Yeah. Makes sense. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to do that list. Nato, my order for E3 would be Nintendo. I'm assuming Nintendo top. Xbox second. Square Enix. Then Ubisoft. I think not having a console launch this year, plus COVID still being a thing, kind of detracted from things overall. Fair enough. All airtime, Bandai was awful. That's what I mean. Bandai and Take-Two shouldn't even be considered. They really shouldn't even be considered. Hannah, oh, I forgot to mention Capcom. I would personally rate them a little higher than Square for favorite showcase. Gotcha. Battle said, oh, snap. Bandai Namco. Hey, you know what, though? Bandai Namco showed up in another way today, gang. They showed up in Smash. You know what, let's just, I already got the bottom two out of the way, so let's just like discuss overall things before I get into what my personal rankings are. And people might assume they already know it, but I have like an interesting way to pitch it before people just instantly assume what it is. And I think you can safely predict it, except maybe like what the bottom two are. But I have a neat way to present what actually is the top. Because there's two different perspectives that I have on that. But so let me just focus on reading chat for a bit. But yeah, in regards to Halo Infinite, somebody asked about the concerns. That's literally all I have. I just want to see Firefight and Forge. That's it. Tom, Bandai Namco, bruh, that leaves. Did you guys see the meme I did? I'm showing you guys the meme I did. I'm forcing you to watch it. Nah, that's okay. It's on Twitter. You should watch it. I put a meme up of Bandai Namco. Thank you everybody for being here, by the way. I appreciate that. All airtime. E3 I thought was decent. I felt like next year it will be a better expo. But overall, it was great. That's good. I'm happy. That's nice. All airtime. I'm glad you enjoyed it. 6 out of 10. Wait. Wait, what was 6 out of 10? You said, but overall it was great. 6 out of 10 is not great. That's in the okay area. Nato, I didn't care enough to engage with the expo stuff. COVID didn't do them any favors, though. Yeah. We also have to consider that, too, guys. This was like the first E3 that we've had coming out of the shittiest year in our lifetimes. I say that because none of us are like, you know, lived through any wars. Huge, well, debatable, but, you know. I think we can agree that 2020 is probably at least one of the worst years in our entire lives. And that affected a lot of game devs as well, a lot of event making as well. And my biggest complaint with E3 as a whole this year is the goddamn schedule. They didn't bother to post the schedule to this thing until like a week out from it. That was so stupid. Does anybody like if anybody paid attention, did you see that? Because they didn't have a schedule for E3 until like a week before it. Usually, E3 has its schedule out like a month before. So, I don't know what happened with that. And then there was the Bandai situation today, where it's like, there's going to be a Bandai Namco show Tuesday after Nintendo. It's like, damn, the pressure's on them. But then, literally, last night, they put on Bandai Namco Presents House of Ashes. And I'm just like, why? Is that to literally just trick people to watch the show? Because if you announce it last minute, then people might miss that like I almost did. It's so ridiculous. But to me, that was the biggest problem of E3 is because like the Take-Two Interactive thing, that was not communicated well enough what that was. It wasn't like in their schedule. Take-Two Interactive presents social inclusion in the workplace. And then it should have said Bandai Namco presents Houses of Ashes. Like they should have said that. Like, I don't know why. The scheduling this year was one of the things that made E3 really annoying. That's that ramble. Peter Clark, I think because of COVID, the conferences were understandably void as much content as they could have. So I'm not critical this year of the conferences as I have in the past. Yeah. That's what I mean. COVID, we're just getting out of COVID, so. I admit, I'm gonna just be skimming a few chat messages. Bal said, dumb people expected Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 5 isn't even done yet. I did mention this during the Capcom stream. What was it? Outer Worlds. Outer Worlds, like, just released a new piece of DLC. I feel like within the past year. And then all of a sudden, they announced Outer Worlds 2 this year. So when I saw that, and I've seen cases like that before, where like a DLC for the game hasn't come out or just came out, and they announced the sequel right after. Let's look at Nintendo. Freaking the Super Mario Party game for Nintendo Switch. They just announced online for that game like a month ago, and all of a sudden here's a freaking sequel for it. Not a sequel, but you know, a new Mario Party game. That's an entire other ramble. But so when people said Street Fighter 6, like, I'm not aware of the situation, but I see those two situations and I'm like, it's possible. I wasn't expecting it, but it's possible. I have another thing to say, but let me get back to the chat. Fox says, I think Xbox is on top. Fair enough. Raindrop, swear I'm not hyped for Infinite. Are we done talking about it? Hi Miguel, we're just talking about kind of like E3 overall. Hannah, I give E3 overall 8.5 out of 10. That's a pretty good score. That's a good score. The expo part 6 out of 10. The mainstream's like Xbox 100%, an 8 out of 10. All airtime says. Nice memes, Keeps. Did you guys check out the Happy Gilmore meme? Yeah. I made that. I woke up this morning with that idea in my head because I was like, Capcom is not going to end this day on a good note. And I was right. I was right. I was like, they're not going to end this on a good note. Oh, that's a good meme idea. I made it like first thing when I woke up. And I was like, I'm just going to have this at the ready to upload. And before the show even happened, I saw like House of Ashes. And I'm just like, I'm uploading that. I'm just uploading it now. All airtime. Speaking of Xbox, you see all them exclusives? Yeah, I did, man. Lots of freaking exclusives. Lots of day ones. Lots of timed releases. We'll get to... Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I had to keep rechecking things because there was no schedule until just before E3. There really wasn't, man. The schedule was absolute crap for E3 this year. I see you guys noticing the schedule thing. Okay, cool. Yeah. Johan, so they really had a seminar / panel and didn't specify? They did, but you have to look into it. Like, when you post the schedule as like an image or places, I don't know. They have to disclose that or something, or leave a link for like the schedule in detail. They just didn't do a good enough job of like letting people know some shows. I'm mostly looking at Bandai and Take-Two. Nato, I honestly felt Summer Game Fest and IGN Summer of Gaming was more of a presence than E3 proper. Oh yeah, like Summer Game Fest is, I don't know. Summer Game Fest to me just kind of seemed like there's gonna be events throughout the summer. And it's almost like they took credit for all the things that are supposed to be E3 this weekend, but they're like, stay tuned to Summer Game Fest where we'll have the Xbox Bethesda Showcase, a Nintendo Direct, and Ubisoft Forward. And I'm just like, whose events are those? Like, yeah. All right, so Tex Dragon says, I say about 5 out of 10 overall. That is like just borderline okay. All airtime. I think Breath of the Wild 2 saved Nintendo. Yeah. Wolfstar, all due respect, but are you tripping? What did Wolfstar say? I missed it. Where did he say? Wolfstar. Oh, Nintendo won, but Xbox was great, but Halo looks like it should be a 2022 game. Really? Wait, what does that mean? Like, Xbox was great, but Halo looks like it should be a 2022 game? As in, like, it didn't look polished and you think it needs more time? No, I think Halo Infinite's polished, man. It's as good as it's gonna get, with it being cross-gen. Actually, Forza kind of proves cross-gen isn't held back. Let's get it back into the ranking, because at this point, like, I just want to talk about a lot of things with you guys about E3. So, in my opinion, I'm gonna continue the kind of rankings here. Oh boy, looking at this sheet. So, obviously, Take-Two and Bandai Namco are at the bottom for me, but it's mostly because I don't think they're even eligible. Oh, this is tough. The toughest one is this bottom one. And you know who it's between. It's between two. You know exactly who it's between. Oh, that's tough, dude. That's really tough, and I can't open it. I'm trying to open the image for you. There we go. Gun to my head, I think the bottom of the actual shows that we watched together is Capcom. Personally. I think Capcom, and I don't think it was a lot of people want to say it was a bad show. I think it was like at the lowest tier okay. And mostly because, one, if you dig into it, they did set expectations, but that is not an excuse for like an okay show, you know? But it's like, it's nice when they let people know, like, hey, just don't expect, you know, any huge ass announcements, no Devil May Cry 6 or anything. But I personally would say Capcom was like the bottom of the shows we watched together because they just didn't have much on paper. I think it was a better show than what's next on this list. I think it was a better like structured show. I think the panel moved a bit better. You know, they had things just kind of kept moving. They didn't spend too much time on one thing, and they had nice things to show, and they showcased the games well, except Resident Evil. That was the only one. But on paper, they just didn't have anything to really talk about. Or at least willing to talk about. I would say they shared that. Well, we'll get to that. But I just don't think Capcom was ballsy enough this year to talk about things that they're working on. So that would be my bottom of the things we watched together. The second to bottom, you all already know. I think we all agree on what the bottom of the shows we watched together are. It was Capcom and it was Square Enix. Square Enix's show was also, like, to me, just bottom tier okay. I thought it was just bottom tier okay. I really give both Capcom and Square Enix the same grade. I think they were both like a C minus. Square Enix one, I might be willing to go to a C though, mostly because on paper, they did have a good amount of stuff, a decent amount. You know, they spent way too much time on Guardians of the Galaxy. If they did not spend so much time on Guardians of the Galaxy, then it would have been a much better show. But unfortunately, they just spent like 15 minutes on Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they brought up another Marvel thing, which is Black Panther, which looks cool, you know, but that's what I mean. Like, on paper, they had those two games, Life is Strange Remastered, Life is Strange True Colors, which looks really cool. And they had a neat, collection of Final Fantasy 1 through 6 on mobile, which is such a great idea. There was something else there too, and they ended with the people that made Neo 1 and 2 doing a Final Fantasy game. And that's really neat. Like a Team Ninja Final Fantasy game, at least that was kind of like a neat note to close on, you know, but no FF16, no FF7 remake, no Just Cause, I'm kidding, or Tomb Raider, none of their like huge franchises. So I think the biggest problem with Square Enix was that they are cursed to be known to make great JRPGs. And I think because people didn't see JRPGs at that showcase, they got a little bit bashed for it. But folks also got to remember that Square Enix also makes a lot of American games too, like Western titles. So those are the bottom two. And I'm going to take a moment to kind of just pause and chat with you guys. So that's the next in the ranking. We went over the two that are ineligible, and then we went over the two that were the bottom shows. Those are my opinions. I'll get to the next two in a moment, but Peter Clark, I've never played a Metroid game outside of the Metroid Prime series. Same here except for one. But the Metroid Dread trailer made me actually really want to play it when it comes out. Yeah, after the Nintendo show and after I finished posting my stuff, yeah, Metroid Dread looks freaking sick. I have to admit. I really got to admit. Let's see. Raindrop, Halo was pretty hyped across the industry after their presentation. A delay might kill that. No, they're not delaying Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite proved itself. It's ready to go. They're spending this entire year polishing it. There is no need to delay Infinite. But what was really cool, actually, I'll check this out right now. It's probably not anymore. Let's see. Trending. Yeah, it's not anymore. But what was really neat is yesterday, it still kind of is. It still kind of is. I'll put this on. Yesterday, the Halo Infinite multiplayer overview was trending. It was #1 trending last night on YouTube. That's really bonkers. And I'm assuming it's not because of views. It's because of, like, the engagement. I'm assuming people were, like, really just, like, watching the entire thing and leaving comments and stuff, and maybe people replaying it. So that was really neat to see Halo finally, like, in the spotlight for a moment. And that was really cool. That was really cool. But today, we have the sequel to Breath of the Wild trending, baby. So that's neat, and that totally makes sense. But anyways, Johan, they weren't going to deep dive during the bigger showcase. Did you want? Okay, he's still talking to somebody else. I'm guessing Johan's having a debate about Halo. Brady didn't care for Capcom and Square, was a major letdown again. Yeah. Nato, I give E3 a 3 out of 5. There were enough games shown to keep me interested, but overall, very lackluster. I hope 2022 will be the year where the hype level will be at least above average. Fair enough. Yeah. We all gonna have different opinions here. I think I'm really close to that. I haven't thought about an overall E3 score. I'll try to give that at the end of this, but I'd say I'm pretty close to that. Not enough coffee. I love that name, man. I think your chair was the MVP. I think your chair was the MVP of this E3, especially after Halo and Metroid segments. I didn't actually freak out at the Halo segment. I just stood up. It's funny because the most hype moment of that entire Halo segment in terms of like getting a reaction out of me was seeing goddamn Joseph Staten on stage. Joseph Staten being on stage for a Halo game at an Xbox event is something that only fans will get, like longtime fans. That was such a cool freaking moment. Not even Whiff or FF16, yeah. I bet you they're saving it though, Nato. I 100% bet you that FF16 and maybe another thing from Capcom. I think those two games are going to show up at a PlayStation event that they're going to have at the end of the month. I think the last Thursday of the month, PlayStation is going to have a state of play that's going to kind of be their answer to like summer game shows. And it's going to be a doozy of one. I'm totally willing to bet that's going to go down. And I almost didn't do a discussion video about that Nintendo Direct that we had, but I'm like, you know what? No, I did one for Xbox. I did one for Nintendo. I need people to understand just because I don't have a PlayStation and just because I don't talk about PlayStation as much as Nintendo and Xbox, I still love what PlayStation is doing, and I will be looking forward to that show, reacting to it with you guys, and doing a discussion on it. If I have time, at least. Brady, Metroid. I gotta stop saying Prime. Brady says Metroid Dread made me think of Ori. Yeah, that's what a Metroid is, a Metroidvania. Like, it's one of the games that helped build that genre. So yeah, Nato Keeb's chair is gonna get revenge after all that abuse. I hurt this baby a lot the past few days. I really did. But I wanna sell that chair. That's like my gaming chair that I don't even use. I use that as a freaking spot to put stuff on. And this chair for just a nice office chair. Gaming chairs are overrated in my opinion. So all our time, the thing I liked about the Xbox show is the second one you had the incredible, is that 1 second you had the incredible Stalker 2, then the next minute you had an atmospheric cinematic indie game like Somerville. That show was diverse. It was, man. It was a very diverse show, and that was cool. Let's get to the next two properties. So I'm going to try to see. So before we move on, was there anything in the Capcom and Square Enix shows that you guys liked? Let me ask that first before we move on. I think the way I want to do this is kind of work our way through one at a time. And then especially if people, if you feel like supporting the channel as well as all the work I did the past few days, the description does have Patreon and donations. And if that happens, I think I could stick around for longer. I'm going to do my darnest to wrap this up around an hour, but I know I'm not gonna because I enjoy being with you guys. But is anything from Capcom or Square Enix appealing to you before we move on? Nato Keeb's chair needs a doctor, counselor, and a lawyer after this week. This poor at this point, I like subconsciously do that for you guys. Isa says, Resident Evil 8 DLC announcement. That's it. And it was literally just a text. Like, why didn't the girl even mention it at the end when she did the recap? But yes, Resident Evil 8 DLC is cool. Peter Clark says, no, not really. Nothing from Capcom and Square. Nato, I've had 2 gaming chairs and they are really not super comfortable. They're not, man. All airtime. Capcom and Square, I hated both. But there's like nothing you can get out of those. So here, I'll raise my hand. I was pleasantly surprised by the Guardians of the Galaxy game. I think it looks really cool. I just think they spent too much time on it, but I think the game looks really promising. In fact, I want to play that game a lot more than the Avengers one. I really do. And now says, I like Guardians and Stranger Paradise despite all that chaos. Yeah, exactly. Like, just because the shows weren't great doesn't mean you have to hate the games. And I thought Life is Strange Colors, True Colors as well. That looked cool too. I think that's why the Square show had me a bit more, because they showed more that I'm a bit more into. But Capcom, I really liked their showing of Monster Hunter, Monster Stories 2. I think this is called Monster Stories 2. I thought that game, like, that was finally the trailer and showcase to get me into that game. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And then we have another for Guardians of the Galaxy was the best game of Square and Capcom, and now it says the DLC for RE was most exciting. Okay. Good night, all airtime. Or sorry, he says I have to go now. No worries. All right, next 2 shows. Capone says Capcom was a pleasant show, but just a nice package re-showing. Let's get to the next 2 shows that I personally think. I think these shows. Well, actually, I liked one much more than the other, and you guys could probably guess which next 2 shows I'm going to say. But the first one I want to mention, that I would say, why can't I get these pictures to load? This show, I thought, was, like, both Capcom and Square were C-minuses to me. Square's like a soft C-, but I think both those shows were kind of like just low tier, okay, barely passable. But Summer Game Fest. This show, I thought it's tough. I think it was top tier okay. Maybe loosely good. I don't know. Actually, this is tough for me. It was top tier okay, low tier good to me. What do you guys think? Damn, that's tough. I'm gonna... This is actually tough to me. I don't know whether to say C+ or B-, but I think it was definitely better than the Square and Capcom shows. Because, yeah, they didn't show many games that I myself am too into. I did note a few that I thought looked cool, but they just had a lot on paper, which is cool. The structure of the show was neat, you know. The thing about Jeff, though, is that he does like to put on a show. He likes to have bands come on, which is fun, you know. And for the show, I thought it was a well put together show. I would agree with Nato, though, earlier. I think Nato said this. I think it dragged on a little bit too long. Everybody's still talking about Square Enix. Any thoughts on Summer Game Fest, though? But, like, I just thought it dragged on a little bit too long. That's just me. I think I'm going to sneeze. But it did have a few cool highlights, but definitely the thing that brought it home is Demonic Kingdom said it. Elden Ring was the best game they showed for me. it's funny. I'm curious what people think of Elden Ring. Because, like Nato says, I give Summer Game Fest a solid 4 out of 5. Elden Ring, though. Elden Ring was the most exciting. Like, see, but that's the thing. Everybody's just talking about Elden Ring. But, like, nobody's talking about anything else at that show. Like, the freaking director's cut of Death Stranding. There was, I mean, a very brief look at Ratchet and Clank, but why? You know, the game was coming out soon. Among Us, that was technically the first place we saw a glimpse of what's coming to Among Us, and then Xbox showed it in more detail. There's a few things and I can't remember, but that's the thing. Summer Game Fest was so full of stuff that was kind of like, that's neat, you know? But all anybody thinks about is Elden Ring. And personally, I thought there was things at the show that visually looked better than Elden Ring. The art direction of Elden Ring, though, and the gameplay of Elden Ring is why people go to it. But visually, I thought Elden Ring, like, you know, I could see why this is cross-gen. Let me put it that way. But I'm still happy that people finally got to see that game. They have been dying to freaking see it. But I personally, I've told you guys this throughout the entirety of E3 weekend. And I see Dragon going, Elden Ring saved Summer Game Fest, to be honest. I personally think Summer Game Fest, like, Elden Ring being in it, this is actually what I was about to say. If a show has a single fantastic, awesome sauce game, that's not going to up its grade to me. Like, yeah, if it ends with that game, then that is a nice thing to, like, end on a good note. But I'm not gonna, like, I don't want to just say Summer Game Fest was saved because of Elden Ring. Like, I want to think of the whole show, and that's why I'm saying, when I think of the whole show, it's like a C+ to me, man. Like, it was just under good to me. Like, just barely at good. But that's just me. I've heard some people say that was a good show. I listened to Kinda Funny. Most of them kind of agree that it's kind of in the B tier. And one of them said it was an A. And that's what I mean. Opinions can differ. I'm like, it's very the tippy top of okay. That's where I sit. But the Deviation and Sony partnership, that was cool. Announcing an entire publisher. They announced an entire publisher at this thing, which is crazy. Sorry. But the show that I got to admit, there was two really big surprises this year. I was telling Josh from Quest Mode after we did that stream talk from last week. I told him, man, I really want to see Ubisoft surprise me this year. I want to be pleasantly surprised by what Ubisoft pulls off. And I was pleasantly surprised. If you don't feel the same, I totally get it. But let me explain this though, and thank you for the bless yous, Capone and Hannah. Every year, Ubisoft is the most meh show to me. It's always been the most I don't play any of your games, and the way you put together the show, I don't know, I'm not too into it. And I was telling Josh, I'm like, honestly, if Ubisoft just actually has like a good show this year that, like, even though I'm not going to play any of these games, it's put together really well and they showcase the game super well, and, you know, at least I'm like, I can respect everything that was here, then I can get into it. They did exactly what I wanted. I'm not saying this was the end-all be-all greatest Ubisoft show of all time, but I'm curious what folks are saying. I just felt like they showcased their games well. I knew that there was going to be Tom Clancy galore here, but guess what? There was only like one or two things. I think actually just one, correct me if I'm wrong. And they just kicked off with it. So I was like, wow, they got the Tom Clancy thing out of the way. What are they going to do for the rest of this show? And while, yes, there wasn't any Splinter Cell, actually, I have a joke about that I'll share in a moment, but I just thought they showcased their games well. And this, you know, Extraction game from Tom Clancy Rainbow Six or whatever, it seems interesting. I was not expecting to be as into that as I was, and they showcased it pretty well. And Riders Republic looks like a pretty fun game too, and I'm like, I don't know if I'll invest in buying that, but I gotta admit, looks like fun. Far Cry 6 got overly marketed throughout E3 in my opinion. Looks like it could be a good game, but I feel like it just was overly marketed throughout E3 this year. Ubisoft is really trying to sell that game. And I personally like it when games don't market more than they need to. And there was like 2 other things that I thought was promising. I thought the guitar thing was neat, but mostly the video presentation. The video presentation and the pacing of the Ubisoft show, I thought was really well done. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, they could have had another 1 or 2 really hype announcements. They ended with Avatar. They ended with one of the most beautiful looking games that's rendered using the engine, which I learned about during this E3. I'm like, okay, I think there's like a couple of you that have reached out to me and it said, or just I've seen your opinions and said like, I don't like these cinematic trailers. I looked into it. When it says rendered in engine, that means this cinematic was generated using the same engine that they're going to use to render the game. It's rendered using the same engine that they're going to use for the game. So like Hellblade 2, that trailer was stunning looking. And they're using Unreal 4 at the time, but now they're going to transition to Unreal 5, and we've seen what Unreal 5 can do. And that's what that trailer for Avatar was. It was stunning, and it's a next-gen exclusive. And that game has a lot of potential. I thought that was a good note to close out on. So, I thought Ubisoft had a good show. I honestly, I kind of want to give it a solid B. I kind of want to give it a solid B. Maybe a B minus. No, I'd say B minus. I'd say B minus. Like, I am firmly at B minus. I almost would say B, but I'm going to say B minus. I thought it was a good show. Finally, a show from Ubisoft that I was actually like, nice job, guys. Good stuff. And again, the only reason I'm happy about that is because I never care about Ubisoft. But this year I was like, nice job. So that's what I'll say. But what do you think about the Ubisoft show and Summer Game Fest before we move on to the obvious 2 highlights of the... yeah. Capone, Game Fest, they showed how much nice, cool... Okay, things are typed a little bit weird here. I do rate it second because Tales of Arise character reveal. That's right, Summer Game Fest did show the new look at Tales of Arise. That is true. I actually forgot about that. It showed a very good trailer of Tales of Arise. Chief Master, Summer Game Fest in comparison to the rest, 4 out of 10. Well, don't do comparison to the rest, just what did you think of it? Let's see. Brady Gisel, hey, hello. Let's see. Carlos, Square Enix was my fave. FF Origin will most likely look and play better than what was shown. We'll see. I hope so. Chief Master, Ubisoft has been meh for me the past decade, sadly. And that's what I mean. I'm not saying I'm grading their games. I'm strictly talking about these guys' shows and what they had to show and how they showed it. I'm not saying, you know, I don't want to talk about past Ubisoft. I want to talk about the here and now. Bobby gives Ubisoft a C+ and Microsoft a B. Chief Master F in the chat for no Splinter Cell. Okay, that's my joke. I wanted to tell you guys really quick. Capcom and Ubisoft know exactly what people want. Capcom and Ubisoft know exactly what people want. Can you guys say in the chat, what is the game that Capcom knows what people want but refuses to give year after year after year? And what is the game that Ubisoft has and they know the people want that they refuse to give year after year after year? What are those 2 games that Capcom keeps saying no to fans and Ubisoft keeps saying no to fans? What are those 2 games? Dragon, the best thing at Ubisoft, in my opinion, was Mario plus Rabbids. I would agree. That was that and Avatar. They definitely close on a really good note. God, that Mario plus Rabbids was such a good trailer. That was such a good reveal. And that happened at Ubisoft show. And I got to admit, if that was at the Nintendo show, then that would really mess with things. That would mess with this whole ranking, but that was a really good part of the Ubisoft show. I almost forgot about that. Yeah, Mario plus Rabbids was really cool. I'm seeing another person mention that. Nato, I think highlight of that show was AC Valhalla expansion, which makes me want to buy it. Yeah, they announced an expansion to AC Valhalla, which is doing phenomenally. So that's cool. They're doing an expansion to that. And Roxas Stan, I really loved Xbox's 2018 conference. That was so iconic. It was, and I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, I would agree. Xbox's 2018 conference was great. Nato, oh yeah, Avatar looked good, but I want to see more. Yeah, the Avatar game seems like it could have so much potential, and I say that just potential. Imagine being an Avatar species, you know, whatever the Nabheed or whatever their name is, and just like you have to tame your own like flying animal that is your pet. You could just take it out in the world and explore, maybe hunt a little bit, and maybe there's certain creatures that you're going to have to like take down for your clan, and you learn ways about it, and then oh no, the humans invade every now and then, or maybe other species that you have to go against, but the humans especially are deadly, so you have to fight against their machines. Like the Avatar game, I gotta admit, I feel like that could be really cool. Capone, if I do play an Avatar game, I want to be human. Roxas says Ubisoft was pretty good. Miguel says, I thought Ubisoft did a good job presenting their games. Exactly, Miguel, I would agree. I thought they presented their games really well. And that's what I liked about it. Like, they showed a cinematic trailer, if it was the first time for it. They had faces of the devs explaining the game and how it is in development and what it is. And then they had gameplay to show what they're talking about. I thought that was a really neat format that they did with almost every game. So that was cool. Almost every game. Okay, Flagboy. Okay, people are saying Rayman for Ubisoft, but unfortunately Rayman isn't the thing. Like, this is why I like doing this content, is because I myself like listen and watch so much of the stuff that I try to do, and I listen every year what people predict, what people want, and all I ever hear from Ubisoft is Mr. Ronaldo got it, Splinter Cell would be the one for Ubisoft. Splinter Cell is constantly like Miguel says Assassin's Creed for Ubisoft, but we don't need to worry about that. We get an Assassin's Creed game like every other year. Used to be every year, but now it's like every other year. We don't need to worry about Assassin's Creed. But Ubisoft refuses to do anything with Splinter Cell, even though all their fans keep bitching and complaining that they keep putting him in literally every other game but his own series. So, yeah. But nobody knows what the Capcom one is? I want to like drop everything. Nobody knows what the Capcom one is? And I know, and maybe it's because like, the only reason I know is because like I love to like listen to multiple, like I listen to PlayStation people, Xbox people, Nintendo people, general all three people, PC people. I listen to a lot of people. So I get it, but if you don't do that, then I understand maybe why. But like, do you know what the Capcom one is? Flagboy's saying Mega Man. You guys are like doing good guesses with like Mega Man and Rayman. Mega Man, I don't think has to worry too much. He had a game 2 years ago, I think. 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But no, see, Marvel vs. Capcom. Nope, we had one of those 3 years ago. Would it be an RE4 remake? I would consider that. RE4 remake is a good one, but no, nobody's saying it. Think of a game that hasn't had a new entry in literally years, like a decade. I'm talking a decade. That's why people are talking about Splinter Cell for Ubisoft, because Ubisoft does things with all their other properties except Splinter Cell. What everybody is saying for Capcom, when the hell are you gonna do another Dino Crisis? They know people want it. They know there's like a cult following for it. They know people would buy the shit out of it. And maybe not the people here, because I know I won't say things, but like there's a massive outcry for a freaking Dino Crisis game, whether it's a remake or whether it's a new one. I guess if it's a new one, then people want it to be a sequel to 2, because 2 never got like its story concluded. But yeah, Dino Crisis, Capcom will never do anything with. But anyways. Let's get to the 2. Boy. If you're enjoying the stream, please feel free to leave a like, and also consider joining our Patreon community. It's a good time there. We're going to have a game session, by the way, this Saturday. If you're a patron watching this, or if you're not a patron watching this, we're going to have a game session this Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard. We'll be in a Discord chat together, and we need to figure out what we're going to play together. It's going to be fun. But, Nato, oh, you are absolutely right. Dino Crisis is needed. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, man. They refuse to. Capcom refuses to touch Dino Crisis. Ubisoft refuses to touch Splinter Cell. They just don't do it. It's such a good game besides 3. We don't talk about 3. Yeah, my friend educated me on Dino Crisis, but yeah, Dino Crisis is niche even amongst Capcom fans. Stop this. All right. We already know what the top 2 are. Okay, we already know what the top 2 are. And I like that we've kind of had this broken out. It was the 2 that are ineligible, Bandai Namco and Take-Two Interactive. We named what the actual bottom 2 shows were, which is Square Enix and Bandai Namco. And in my opinion, we named what was the 2 kind of like, you know, it was top tier, okay, good shows, being Ubisoft and Summer Game Fest. But we all know what the 2 like top shows were, and everybody already knows potentially what my top 1 is, but let me explain a different perspective here, okay? Like, hear me out before, like, you just assume, like, why it's the top. So, but let's get into the first thing here. I think that Nintendo, I did videos on both these guys. Nintendo had a good show this year. It was a good show. And we're gonna differ on both of these conversations. We're gonna differ on both of them. Like, that's fine. Nobody's the same. But I think Nintendo had a really safe show this year. They didn't announce anything insanely huge, you know? But they also didn't keep it super duper low scale. They announced a lot of cool stuff and even touched upon Metroid Prime 4 by just mentioning it. And they also freaking ended with a look at Breath of the Wild 2, which is now trending on Twitter. Or sorry, trending on Twitter. Well, it probably is, but trending on YouTube. And so I think this was it was a really good show. I honestly consider this show a really good one. Since the show happened today, I've been able to simmer on it. I've been watching Treehouse. Metroid Dread looks freaking sick. I want to play that. I'm really glad a new Wario game got announced. I won't restate too much of what my video is, but overall, the thing that I really wish didn't happen in this show was that Mario Party thing. What are your guys' thoughts on there being a new Super Mario game that's like a remaster of 5 boards from Super Mario Party? And I'm curious, like, from folks that really genuinely love the show, like, I think, like, Dragon and one other person here, like, Nintendo was the top 1. I think Nato as well. Like, to those that saw that Super Mario Party thing, and it's like, here's 5 classic boards with 100 classic games, and it's an entire other game you have to buy. It doesn't surprise me with Nintendo that they wouldn't just make that an expansion for the base game that already was lacking in content. I just got done watching a massive Nintendo fan. This guy screams Nintendo from the top of the mountains, and he thought that was bullshit. Like, Mario Party already was lacking content, but so, anyways, that's just an entire other ramble. But Peter Clark, I think Nintendo is slowly regaining their understanding of what people want, but they are still making some big mistakes. I just don't get why they can't modernize certain things or just do like just do DLC. Don't sell certain games at full price. Like, it's just, if the game sells, they sell. Chief Master, Nintendo sold a calculator with the price on the Switch. It's basically the thing to resell stuff that people with nostalgia will buy. And that, to me, if it wasn't for that, people always make jokes about Xbox being, have fun playing really old games. Oh, what's new on that system? And I'm just like, first off, there's a lot new on that system, but also, Nintendo is always porting stuff. But it's cool because Nintendo, you can do stuff portably, and that's the gimmick of the Switch. Like, the Switch is still, to me, the coolest console I own. But if it's a game that's on another system that I feel like will be up-resed or whatever, then I'd rather play on that. Nato, nope, doesn't surprise me either. Nintendo wants that cash. Nintendo wants that cash. Manual law, I can agree to that. Yeah, remaster would be insane. They won't do it though. Dragon, with Super Mario Party thing, the idea of it being a DLC didn't come to mind until other people brought it up, because I already heard a lot of people talking about how they wanted a sequel. Yeah, and I heard some folks saying that too, Dragon. Like, people were like, are they going to do a Super Mario Party sequel? And they did, but also didn't. Like, I don't know. It's just weird, man. But hi, Joey. Welcome to the stream. But yeah, I think Metroid 5 looks sick. I looked into how that is, and I just overall think this is a really good show. Metroid 5 was a really cool highlight. Breath of the Wild was obviously a cool highlight. I'm glad WarioWare gets a new game, and sure, lots of cool ports. I personally don't care about the ports, but it is cool. Some of them, you know, especially if you're a Nintendo person, like the photo horror game that was only on Wii U. Now you can play it on Switch if you buy it again at full price. But I don't know. Like, I just wish that there was a couple more biggies. That's all. If there was just a couple more biggies, then I would put this in the A tier. If there was a few more biggies, I would put this in the A tier. But I feel like there wasn't. I feel like other than Breath of the Wild, and I guess after looking into it, Metroid 5, because apparently that game was like a myth for 13 years or longer, then those to me were the kind of two biggies. But other than that, I feel like there wasn't any like huge, like holy shit announcements kind of a thing. So because of that, I thought it was a really good show. I would say it's a B+. Now, before you think, here he goes. Here Kibiji goes, talking about that company that is just, speaking of money, they just buy things, and because of that, people are excited because business and blah, blah, blah. Like, before you think that, for sure, to me, the Xbox Bethesda showcase was the best one. And like I said, I've been listening to a variety of folks. I listen to like PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, PC, all platform. And it seems like universally, this is what people have been saying. Like, they're like, damn, Xbox crushed it this year. Some didn't like it as much as like me or others did, but they're still like, damn, that was a good show. But I want to present an idea. And not oh Lord, here it comes. I want to present an idea though, that kind of goes with why I think the Nintendo show didn't sell me as much. Which, by the way, Shinigami Tensei 5, that's cool. What I was thinking when I was watching the Nintendo show was, there's nothing here I'm willing to spend $60 on to play. And no, this isn't me about to gush about Game Pass. What I want to offer is if I did not have Game Pass, again, if I did not have Game Pass, then the Xbox Bethesda showcase, the only two games I personally was like, damn, I really want to play that, is 12 Minutes and Halo Infinite. I have to think about that harder, but there's probably like 2 or 3 games that showcase that I myself was like, I will buy that game. And because of that, that definitely would take like 10% at least out of the show. That would take at least 10% out of the show. So that's what I want to offer you. My perspective, if I did not have Game Pass, then the show was, I was like, dang, there's a lot of good games here. Just like the Nintendo show, there's a lot of things I can play. I probably will only get 2 of these, but this was a good show. I'm going to give it also a B+. I'm going to also give it a B+. So that's what I want to offer you, that perspective. So I just want to offer that. As a person, like, if you just for some reason don't want to touch Game Pass for whatever reason, I personally hope you can like at least relate with that. Like, because I'm doing my best to try to see other people's perspectives. That's something I pride myself on. And I just, while I still don't understand folks that like I trying to figure out like why somebody wouldn't want to get into that ecosystem. I at least can just respect, like, okay, so for whatever reason, they want to buy all their games. They currently feel they have no desire to try any of these games, even if they didn't have to pay for them, or at least paid $1 for them. Let's just put it that way, to try it out. And if I was in that state and I just had nothing to do with Game Pass, I have no interest to do it, then there was a lot of games at this show. I'm probably only interested in a couple of them. I thought it was a good show. So I'm going to say that before I gush like crazy. Because we know what show was my favorite show, but I'm going to say that first and look at the chat. So they're tied. Nintendo and Xbox were tied, because if you think of it from a way that you're outside of that ecosystem and don't have Game Pass, then they both showed a lot of good games, and that's it. Duke Tago, it's hard for me to pay $60 for a Wii U ports when I could get 4 months of Game Pass for the same price and play 12 minutes, Psychonauts 2, Scorn, Sable, Back 4 Blood, Halo Infinite, all of this year. What Duke just said, all this year. That's how I feel, man. Like, that's why it's like I was watching the Nintendo show and I'm like, I know this Mario Party game that should be DLC, it looks awesome, but why am I having to pay a full $60 for this when the base game people were saying lacked content? Like, so it's kind of diving into a whole other issue. Like Joey's saying, okay, I guess people are already talking about it, so I know we're going to get into probably a heated debate, but so that was my perspective on it without Game Pass. With Game Pass, the show becomes a solid A to me. Maybe A-, maybe A- actually, because I do think the second half of the show really slowed down. And in fact, maybe even because of that second half of the show, maybe that without Game Pass grade is a solid B instead of a B+, to which case, yeah, Nintendo wins. But if you have Game Pass, it completely changes your perspective on the show. It completely changes it. Because what you're doing while you're watching it is like, yeah, I'll try that out. Oh, I'll try that out. Oh, I'll try that out. Nah, I'll pass on that one. Nah, I don't care about that. Oh, that looks good. You know, like all you're doing as you're watching that show is instead of thinking while you're watching the Nintendo showcase, $60, it's not like, it looks cool. I wish it was free, but like, I don't want to pay $60 for it. That's what happened. As I was watching that show, it's like everything here I can try, I can play. And if I don't like it, cool. Let's move on to one of the other games that's here. And because of that, without this show, I would have only had 1 or 2 games that I was going to play that was in that entire showcase. But because I'm a Game Pass member, it's now 7 or 8 games that I intend to play. That's why. It's 2 different perspectives. If you haven't dabbled into Game Pass, then the show was like a solid B. If you are not a Game Pass member and haven't been in that ecosystem for at least 4 months, you can't just try it and then be done. You gotta try it out for a few months and then say, nah, it's okay. But if you don't have Game Pass, the show was like a solid B. If you do have Game Pass, then it was an A-. So that's why this show was absolutely mind-blowing to see the next Todd Howard game, Back 4 Blood. You get to try out Battlefield 2042. The next Arcane Studios game, who I would compare to Insomniac. Halo Infinite, Microsoft Flight Simulator, all this shit, man, that I'm just not paying. And indies. 12 minutes looks phenomenal, man. So that's kind of why. Like, no matter what, to me, if I wasn't a Game Pass member, Nintendo wins. If I am a Game Pass member, Xbox won. That's my personal perspective. Now we're all going to get into debates, I'm sure. Just perspective, that's it. I'm not saying I'm right, but I just want to explain my reasoning, and now we'll chat. So, here we go. But yeah, Duke brought up a good point earlier about you pay $60 for the Wii or Wii U port, or you pay $60 for the 4 months of Game Pass to try 12 minutes, Psychonauts 2, Scorn, Sable, Back 4 Blood, Halo Infinite. Miguel, the best from Xbox was Halo Infinite in the mini fridge. I didn't look into that mini fridge. Dragon, for the longest time, I've been wondering how Game Pass works behind the scenes because I can't help to feel like the companies that put their games on Game Pass are just losing money, but I don't know. So, Dragon, that's a totally fair concern. I did a video about kind of how Game Pass is working, but it is working. Specifically for the devs. If anybody is losing out with Game Pass, because that's a good concern about, like, you know, are devs getting their money's worth or whatever. That's a good concern. It's like maybe some don't want to support that. If anybody is losing out through Game Pass, it's Microsoft. Because all they've been doing is just giving the Xbox division all this money. Here, buy this studio, get that entire publisher, make that partnership, blah, blah, blah. Like, if anybody's losing here, it's Microsoft, because they are the ones putting all the money into it. But what the devs get is first-party backing by literally one of the top 10 richest companies and highest net value companies in the world. And so what these devs get is, instead of having to make a game for a publisher and have a certain amount of time to do it and to rush to do it and to tell that publisher, hey, we need more money and stuff, Xbox has set themselves up for 24 studios, really like 35 teams, for each of them to get a 4-year dev cycle that's fully funded. As an artist, that is insane. As an artist, I can't imagine how beautiful that is, to have a secure 4-year dev cycle where everyone else in the studios, like all the other teams, they're making a game release every quarter. And meanwhile, you're good because, like, take 343 for instance. They just released the game and now they're just going to support Halo Infinite, but it's like they don't need to develop a game. Or Double Fine. Double Fine is releasing Psychonauts 2 in August. They had no first-party backing before. Now they just get to make games. They don't have to worry about it. They were a totally indie studio before, and now they got Microsoft's backing. So after Psychonauts 2, they're just going to make their next game, and they get to have like 4 or 5 years to do it safely. That's insane as an artist. Anyways, sorry. That to me is like really important because I care about the devs, and I don't want them to be in crunch or like to, you know, be like not release the game how they want it to be, and that's really important to me. Anyway, sorry, that was a long rant. Crimson King, I'm hyped for Metroid 5. I was never a Metroid fan. That game looked good for a Switch game. Yeah. That Metroid 5 looks really cool because, like, when you play it, you freaking back out and it goes into like a cinematic in cutscenes, and it's really freaking cool. Dragon, I had a friend who bought Super Mario Party who says he prefers it this way because the last game was so lacking. He's glad they just started over. Interesting. Okay, I admit the chat's moving, so I gotta like just pick and choose here. Duke Tago, the only games that won't be on Game Pass are Battlefield 2042 and Far Cry 6, not 5, 6. And Battlefield will eventually come since it's EA game. That is true. I don't know if I'll be able to wait though. Capone, Xbox is, oh sweet, we get that. Nintendo is, oh sweet, now that on here. What? I didn't get that one. Nato, also games aren't free. So long as there's a dollar value being paid for them, none of it's free. I'm even including PS Plus in this. Yeah, that's 100% true. There is, people tend to say Game Pass games are free because, like, who says when they go to Netflix and they just go like, man, that movie wasn't worth the buck. That movie wasn't worth the 12 cents to watch that when I'm watching all these other things. Like, Nato's 100% correct. Game Pass isn't free. But it's like, in 2019, I usually play 3 or 4 games a year. I do. I bleed them dry. And that's because, like, I'm a cheapskate and I don't like to buy games, but, like, I play 3 or 4 games a year, sometimes 5. Ever since Game Pass happened, I play, like, 19 games a year. Yeah, they're not free. I agree. They're not free. I don't even agree. That's fact. They are not free. But you just straight up have the options now. I get why some people would be annoyed with that, but I feel like that's really nitpicking. That's really nitpicking for just to be able to say, it's not free. Like, you're right, the sky has white and blue in it, but like, why is that worth mentioning? But The point is, $60 gets you one game, or $60 gets you 4 months of like 200 games. So that's how I personally see it. Neither of them are free. Which pick and choose. Joey, yeah, the other is that, oh, or sorry, Peter Clark. Okay, there's back and forths happening. Chief Master, how I see it is that you pick the 20 million users, multiply that for at least 10, for 10 at least. That's your monthly earning for Game Pass. It is, but believe me, those deals are expensive to make. But Pretty Gisel Keeps, you have a Series X, right? I do. Dragon, well, thanks for clearing that Game Pass stuff up, because me as a future game dev, it did seem concerning. Yeah, and I love what it's doing for indies, Dragon. Like, that's really cool. You're trying to be a future game dev. I'm really loving what it's doing for indie developers, because they are getting so much exposure on their games. Like 12 minutes. 12 minutes is a game that I think a lot of people should check out. I explained it to one of my buddies, and he's like, that sounds awesome. I'm like, it'll be on Game Pass. And he's like, oh, I'm going to play that. Exactly. Like, indie devs are getting so much exposure on their games thanks to Game Pass, and like even getting a little bit of funding for it too. That's so freaking cool. I love that. I don't want to turn this into a Game Pass conversation. We're supposed to be talking about E3. I mostly just wanted to get at the idea that that Xbox showcase, if you watch that as a perspective of not wanting to get into Game Pass, then the show was a B. If you are embracing what Game Pass is, then the show was at least a solid, okay, not a solid A, but it was at least an A-. The only reason I can't go solid is because I do think the back half, they really slowed it down. But the first half, it was just a freaking game session. Captain Jack Sparrow and Sea of Thieves and Battlefield 2042, Halo Infinite, and Starfield being announced as an exclusive. That's another thing that happened at show. Bethesda, like, basically got confirmed now. No more debates. They're gonna be exclusive to Xbox, which is crazy to say. A lot of shit happened in the first half of that show, and that was cool. But so yeah, non-Game Pass member, it was a B. If you are one, A-. That's my opinion. And those are the E3 show orders, in my opinion. So without Game Pass, Nintendo was top. With Xbox. Peter Clark, I play games competitively, so I usually play 1 or 2 games for a year, so $120 is still less than it would cost me to play those games for a year on Game Pass. I know that's a weird logic. Wait, let me try to figure this out. I play games competitively, so I usually play 1 or 2 games. I pay for 1 or 2 games, maybe you mean? Gosh, I'm not sure I understand that. Brady, when I want to know how many games I played on Game Pass? 3. Want to know how many months I've paid for Game Pass? 7 or 8. You haven't touched it, man. So, but that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, just because, like, it depends, man. It depends. Folks can jump into it or not, but Brady's a good example. It's like not everybody is going to dive in and try new things on Game Pass, because that's really the only time it is a really cool thing, is when you try out new things that you've heard somebody talk about or try out. I love seeing when people get on it, they like message me and they're just like, hey, I'm on Game Pass. What should I try out? And I'm like, I don't know. What kind of game are you into? So that's something, but Nato, I think that one of the things that is counterpoint to that is development issues with Halo Infinite. The amount of money and time spent on the project concerns me in terms of cancellation. Yes, I would say that's definitely on the 343 issue. I personally think 343, they have the potential to be a good dev, but I don't know. Like, that's kind of more so an attack on the brand that is Xbox, in my opinion. But I definitely think that's why they're expanding their studios. Bethesda has made 4 Game of the Year nominees the past 10 years. Obsidian is... Actually, that's not true. Correction. 1, 2, 3. Bethesda has made 3 Game of the Year nominees the past 10 years. Also, my camera just exploded. Oh, no. I'm gonna be right back. Shit. Buffer. 1 second. Actually, we're just gonna get me on camera. Oh no, I can't be on screen. What have I done? Okay, well there I am, but I know why that happened. But anyways, I'm gonna have to... Let me see if I can fix that right now. I hope I can. Let's see. It's not that it died, it's a weird thing where I have to technically keep recording. Let's see, now we're back. So and we back now. Oops. And then boom. Come on, baby. Come back. Come back to me. Damn it. Second. There we go. Should be back now. Cool. Sorry about that, guys. We back now? Joey, Roblox. But yeah, we back now. Good. But yeah, if we're back, just basically, I think that's why, you know, they can't rely on like 343 or other studios that they have. Not because they're bad studios, but because like having Bethesda there, a bunch of teams that have made 3 Game of the Year nominees the past 10 years, and then Obsidian, who's made 1, and they're trying to add to their chances, you know, like instead of just relying it on just Halo, they are now having so many teams. That was another reason I like that show, because I literally came out of it not even thinking about Halo. I came out of it thinking about Stalker 2 and Horizon 5. I really did. I came out of that show and I'm thinking more about Stalker 2 and Horizon 5 than Halo. And that's mind-blowing because Halo is my most anticipated game. It's really, that is a really interesting thing to me. Yeah, we should be back. Okay, cool. Duke Tago, your predictions were right though, Kibiji. You said this might be the final cooldown before they really pick things up in the coming years, and in a sense, it was. Yeah. They went past that. I have to be honest. I don't want to just talk about Xbox because I know we got other shows to talk about, but some people might just want to talk about Xbox, but yeah. My predictions were exceeded for Xbox, and that's another thing that I was really happy about. Whereas Nintendo, they did kind of exactly what I wanted, just not as grandiose as I hoped. Bobby, hello. For me, I found myself now looking for short story games on Game Pass when like I got hyped for Somerville and replaced. Yeah, short games are really neat. I'm trying out Psychonauts right now because I want to play Psychonauts 2. So that's another neat thing is you can kind of dive into old franchises that you've never played before, like Mass Effect. I finally just got to experience the Mass Effect series for the first time. Peter Clark. Okay, wait, I want to read this. I think the summation from Peter Clark, I think the summation is that Xbox is becoming a library of games, Nintendo is a fine restaurant, and the rest are regular gaming companies this year. Well, we'll see. Like, PlayStation's just safe. Like, they just do good shit. And that's kind of why I don't, like, particularly talk about them too much, is because I'm like, there isn't much of a story arc here. They've won. They've done their movie. Like the PS3 era, they were losing, but then like PS4, they just knocked it out of the park. So now I'm like, do I just talk about how they keep making good games? Like it's not as interesting to talk about, you know? Like that's why there's the whole hero arc where it's like they rise and fall and so on. Miguel chair getting payback. That's why the camera died. Yep. Capone, this is kind of early, but I wonder which game's gonna be nominated for Game of the Year. Well, we know Breath of the Wild 2 isn't coming out this year. That's a good question. We got to see a lot of games this year. Maybe not as many. We need to talk about overall E3, but we should actually talk about that. What was your game of the shows? What was your game of the shows for each show this year? So, to kind of like transition away from the debate about Xbox's devs and Game Pass and blah, blah, blah. What was the game of the show for each conference to you? Even if it's obvious, maybe if you want to be like kind of like neat, then you could say one that isn't obvious, but yeah, what was your game of the shows for each of the shows you watched? Like, if you had to pick one game that was your, like, standout, what was it? His chair rolled over the cam cable. Now I have to say I agree with that point. Xbox priority is a large library. It is, man. It's both growing a large library and making quality games. That's why they're getting these devs. And it's really neat to see that paying off. This was the show to finally see that pay off. Because there's like 6 first-party stuff coming out between like June and the end of December, and that's bonkers. Not all of them are main titles, though. I would argue 3 of them are actually main. But that's still neat to say 3 major releases in like half of a year. That's cool. And that's what they want to do. Here we go. Okay, now I'm seeing it. All right. Flagboy says Metroid 5. I'm assuming that's for Nintendo. Flagboy says Metroid 5. Neat. Roxanne and Flagboy, to be honest, I should say Breath of the Wild 2, but I think that was mine for Nintendo. But it was only after I looked at the Treehouse demonstration. After I looked at the Treehouse demonstration, I'm like, okay, this actually looks really cool. Roxas says Avatar for Ubisoft. Ugh, that's a toss and turn for me between the Mario and Rabbids. I'd say Avatar. I think Avatar has a lot of potential. I think I'd agree with you on that. Miguel says for Xbox, Halo Infinite, for sure. It's so cool to see Halo Infinite is like working its way into some folks, but there's also a lot of fans that would say that too. Geodude says Horizon 5. Horizon 5 looked amazing, man. That game, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and Stalker 2, the 3 of those together are the most like next-gen looking games I have seen for Xbox. And like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is for sure the one for PlayStation. For sure. And Kenna. So if I'm sincere, Summer Game Fest, Chief Master says, Summer Game Fest, Elden Ring. Of course, Summer Game Fest, we're all gonna say Elden Ring. Maybe, we'll see. Ubisoft, Avatar, okay. Xbox, Halo Infinite. And Nintendo, Breath of the Wild 2. I could see that. I could definitely see that. Bubbly Noodle says, for Xbox, Sea of Thieves. That expansion for Sea of Thieves, honestly, is going to get me into that game. That's the thing. That's what happens. Over time, it's like, I didn't care to get Sea of Thieves, but then something might happen that brings you in. That's available on my subscription. And that Jack Sparrow update, that's probably going to get me into Sea of Thieves, and I am scared to fall down that rabbit hole. Bobby says for Ubisoft, Riders Republic, Xbox, Halo Infinite, and Nintendo, Breath of the Wild 2. Miguel also says for Ubisoft, Valhalla DLC. Nice. So that's, I think, You're with Nato there. And Nintendo, Breath of the Wild 2. Lots of Breath of the Wild 2 and Metroid 5s for Nintendo, which doesn't surprise me. Eric says Xbox, Sea of Thieves. The rest of them are pretty obvious. Joey says Summer Game Fest, Elden Ring. Ubisoft, Rainbow Six Extraction. Nice, Joey. Nice. Xbox, Halo Infinite. Square, Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins. And Nintendo, Breath of the Wild sequel. I feel like this Nintendo's gonna be all Breath of the Wild sequels. But nice to see Rainbow Six Extraction, man. Like, I think that game looks really neat. Like, I want to know more about it. And I think it could be a really good time. I think it's cool. Chief Master, actually maybe Metroid Dread for Nintendo. Flagboy, Breath of the Wild 2, yes, looks really good, but I need more before making a decision. Eric says, for Ubisoft, Rider Republic. That game does look like just a neat time, man. Like, again, just like Nintendo, it's a game that looks cool to me that I just personally am not willing to put the time and money into, but it does look cool. Pretty Gisel, I'm buying an Xbox just for Halo Infinite. Brady says, I'm assuming for Summer Game Fest, Elden Ring. For Nintendo, Shinigami Tensei. For Square Enix, FF Origins. And for Xbox, Halo. Nato says for Ubisoft, Avatar. And for Xbox, Starfield. Finally, actually, that's awesome. We finally get a mention of Starfield. Like, none of us are talking about that, but I thought that was a neat. It wasn't even a cinematic reveal. It was, but it was using that engine. So at least like that's gonna give us an idea of what the game can look like. It's not gonna look that good, but it's using the same engine that they're using to develop the game. So it can look that good. So yeah, Nato says Ubisoft, Avatar, Xbox, Starfield, Nintendo, Breath of the Wild 2, Summer Game Fest, Elden Ring. Nice. Crimson King, the new game. The new game, an Xbox exclusive, The Revenge of the Chair. In a world of abusing chairs, in this world, the chairs will be abusing the gamers. If somebody knows an artist and just makes fan art of me and my chair, or just my chair, I don't know. I will send you a very random video or something. I don't know. That would be hilarious. Capone, Game Fest, Tales of Arise. Yes, Tales of Arise. Xbox, Age of Empires 4. It was hard to choose. Age of Empires 4. That got shown off at Xbox as well. That is another big first party release as well. That is PC exclusive though, but still that's another, I forgot about that. So I mean Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5, Psychonauts 2. That's not exclusive, Psychonauts 2, but still it's a first party game. And Age of Empires. And there's technically Microsoft Flight Sim and something else, but they already were on PC or something. Anyways, yeah. So yeah, Capone says Game Fest, Tales of Arise, Xbox, Age of Empires 4, and I can't remember the other ones well enough. Dragon says Nintendo, Metroid Dread. Nice. Ooh, Metroid Dread. I wasn't expecting that, Dragon. Nice. Metroid Dread. Ubisoft, Mario plus Rabbids. Makes sense. Summer Game Fest, Elden Ring. Microsoft, Halo Infinite. Ooh, that's neat. Halo Infinite. Capcom, Capcom, Ace Attorney. I'm glad you wiggled in Capcom. I would say, I haven't done my pick yet. Not Enough Coffee says, for Xbox, The Outer Worlds 2. Neat. That trailer really convinced. That trailer, okay, we haven't talked about that. Outer Worlds 2's cinematic trailer is one of the best cinematic trailers I have ever seen in my life. I'm just gonna say that. It's the most meta cinematic trailer I've ever seen. Now it says for Square, FF Origins. Makes sense. Joey, FF Origins looks badass, edgy as fuck, but I'm all for chaos. I think a lot of you guys, thank you for sharing that. That was fun, seeing what you guys thought were the game of the shows. Not Enough Coffee, Nintendo, Metroid, and Breath of the Wild. Well, you gotta pick one. Which one? Not Enough Coffee. You gotta pick one. You can't just say both. Eric, Nintendo, Mario Golf, and also whoever's excited to play WarioWare are smoking straight up crack. I think WarioWare could be a neat time if it was like $20, but if that's a $60 game, then I don't know. But like, that game looks like it could be fun to play with people in the same room. All right. If I had to say mine, I have to wrap this up because I don't have any more water. And we're more than an hour over. Holy crap. And by the way, guys, as we approach like the last 10 minutes here, I just want to thank so much the patrons here. Like Nato, Dragon, Johan, if he's still here, Brady, Hannah was here earlier, Capone, Joey. Those are a few patrons in the community that are on our Discord. They can request podcasts if you want me to do a full-blown discussion on anything on E3 this year, or a topic idea like a this or that. You can do that on Patreon. So just a plug into that, and it also tells me that you really enjoyed the content and you want more of it and to support it. Probably going to get a part-time editor soon. I am really excited for that. But if I had to say my game of the shows, ooh, that's tough. I haven't put much thought into this one. Let's just go down like the list of like what I said, the least impressive show to most impressive. Capcom, the Monster Hunter Stories game. I think that later, Pretty Jissel, thanks for coming. Pretty Jissel, I was like, for Pretty Jissel's game show. Okay, that was funny. I think YouTube can make clips, but that show was funny. Okay. The Pretty Jissel show. No, for Capcom, was the Monster Hunter Stories game. That was my highlight for Capcom. Even though that was shown previously, but this was finally the trailer that like gave us a glimpse of gameplay, but also the story cinematics. I'm like, this game looks really cool, and I have not bought a game for my Switch in a long time. I know, bought, grammar, whatever. That game looked really cool. I would say Monster Hunter Stories for Capcom. For Squeenix, it's tough. This might be a very similar situation to something else. I would say it was the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Maybe, that's tough. That's between the Life is Strange colors and Guardians. Like, I'd be more likely to play the Life is Strange game, but I was more impressed with the Guardians one. And I want to say the ones that impressed me the most, rather than what I am, like, looking forward to the most. I want to say what impressed me the most. So in that sense, that's why I want to say game of the show. It's not what I'm looking forward to most, it's what impressed me the most. And, like, I'd want to gush about most. And for me, yeah, Capcom's was Monster Hunter Stories 2. For Square Enix, with that being in mind, I would say Guardians of the Galaxy. I was really worried about that game, but that game actually looked pretty cool. For Summer Game Fest, it actually wasn't Elden Ring. It was something else. And I can't remember what that something else is, so I am probably going to have to by default say it was Elden Ring. But there was something else at that show that I thought was really cool. I'm just gonna have to say Elden Ring then. And no, it wasn't Tales of Arise. For Ubisoft. It's between the two. I'm gonna say Avatar. I think Avatar has a lot of potential to be a really cool game. I think that has potential to be a really cool game. From Nintendo, Shin Megami Tensei 5, by the way, looks really cool. I think that game looks really cool, but I would say from Nintendo, the thing that's got me the most jazzed, it's kind of a cheap shot. We haven't talked about it yet, but can we get some, we'll wait on that. You know what, I'll just say Metroid 5. I'll just say Metroid 5. No, I'm sorry, it's the Smash reveal. For the Nintendo, it was the Smash reveal. I'm sorry. I am so happy that there's a freaking fighting game character coming to this next pass, because the first pass got Terry, and then this pass gets Jean. That's really cool to kind of vary things up, to have both passes have a good fighting game, a big fighting game character. I know Min, I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are about Jean and Smash, but before I go. But yeah, Jean and Smash I thought was a really neat pick. Min is like, I'm on the fence with her, you know, like she is a fighting game character, but not like a classic one, you know, like a classic one. There's a reason why people always look at like Chief and Doom Guy when they think, who can we put in that's a shooter? People think of like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot when they think of kind of like a PlayStation platformer game. You know, like Min isn't who you think of when you think fighting game. That's what I mean by that. So it was cool to see Jean. That is probably my most hype thing from the Nintendo show. But if I was to say an actual game, then it would be Metroid 5. And surprisingly, it should be Breath of the Wild 2. I just need to know more about Breath of the Wild 2. I can't say that was my most hype reveal because I'm a little bit like, I still have many questions, but Metroid 5 looked really cool. And I'm just like, that was it. I feel like I have an idea of the game. This is cool. And for Xbox, that's tough. It's surprisingly not Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite's my most anticipated game of the year, but it was not my game of the show for Xbox. It's between two. It's really freaking tough. I am gonna say Forza Horizon 5. It's so close between that and Stalker 2. But Stalker 2 and Forza Horizon 5 were my game of the shows for Xbox. Gun to my head, though, I'm gonna say Forza Horizon. And I'm not even like a car or racing fan in the slightest, but that game just looks like it'd be so much fun to just listen to podcasts with, hang out with friends, and so on. I could totally go to Stalker 2 though as well. Stalker 2 looks phenomenal. But anyways, those are my game of the shows. Any other final comments before we go? And I just pass the F out. Yes, I see this. Not a traditional fighter. Yes, Capone. We got Terry versus Ken and Ryu versus Gene. Yep. Terry versus Ken and Ryu versus Gene, man. That's what you go to Smash for, those pair-ups. I showed that to my roommate earlier. His reaction was hilarious because he's actually a fighting game fanatic, or he's into fighting games more than me. And I was like, did you see the new Smash trailer? He's like, who'd they add? I'm just like, turn away from the TV. And I played it for him so he couldn't see the thumbnail. And when he saw it, he's like, is this Tekken? Is this Tekken? And then he sees Gene, he's like, oh shit! Like, that was pretty cool. That's what I mean. I like JRPG folks in Smash for this Fires Pass 2. They got plenty. They have Sephiroth and they have Pyra and Mithra. Fighting game fans, they have Min Min, but I would say that's kind of like a bonus. But now they have Gene, and that's a much more bigger deal. So we will see who that last character is. It's a cartoony one. There's 2 fighters, there's 2 JRPGs, there's 2 cartoonies. Somebody's gonna be alongside Steve. Bubbly Noodle, pro tip, get Advance Wars when it comes out. You will have a fun time. Advance Wars, I hear, is a really, like, that's a neat deal. That they finally have something after so long. I just have no knowledge of it, so that's why. Crimson King, concept art coming soon about you in your chair. Lol, my friend is doing, so expect, like... Tweet it at me, Crimson. Make sure you tweet me when that gets done. Jack Smith, what's your gamer tag, bro? If you go to, and I'm gonna plug this in actually really quick. I am taking the rest of the week off in terms of content, except for finishing a West Side Otaku video. Bubbly Noodle, I don't know why the alert. Oh, I think I got rid of alerts because some folks just join and then leave. But even if they do, there's support, still support. But Bubbly Noodle, thank you very much for becoming a new patron, buddy. I really appreciate that. Welcome to the freaking family. If you are not linked, if you don't have your Discord linked to your Patreon, then make sure you do so, and then log out and log back in, and then you'll automatically be added to our server. But missed a shout out to Bubbly Noodle for becoming a new C-Class KIBI. Really appreciate that, man. Thank you so freaking much. But a quick plug into Twitch in regards to my gamer tag. This. I can't open this, but if you're on Xbox, oh, I need to change that to just Xbox now. If you go on Xbox and go to Clubs tab and search the Kibiji Club, you could find that. And now that I'm getting more of an Xbox community, hopefully we can have more community playdates there. But yeah, you'll find me there. That's the same place, and gamer tag's still the same as my user or as my YouTube name, so that's where you go. But also Twitch. I'll be live this Thursday, hopefully, if I'm not drop dead exhausted, because I really am drop dead exhausted after this week. So, anyways, though. Kazuya, not Gene. Well, his full name is Gene Kazuya. That's his full name, Dragon. Gene Kazuya. His first name is Gene. Or his last name is Gene. I don't know. Joey, I got Steven Sephiroth. I'm fine with this passing. Nato, Keeb's chair. Abuse art is coming and I can't wait. Dude, if that's a real thing, holy shit. Chief Master MCC crossplay. Oh yeah. Yep. All right. Covalent finally caught a stream. We're wrapping it up, man. I went far over an hour talking about everything, so it's been a good time, guys, but I definitely need to pass out. I actually lost a shit ton of subscribers through this whole thing, which is very unfortunate with all the like stuff I did the past week. But it's fine. It was a really good time hanging out with everybody, and each of the streams had like around 30 people, I think, which is really cool. But I am dead. So the only thing I'm going to do is finish a YouTube video for my anime channel. That is the only YouTube, and maybe Twitch. Otherwise, I'm taking until Sunday off. I hope you understand. It's been a busy time, but I appreciate your support. And thank you again to the patrons here, Dragon, Covalent, Joey, Nato, Brady, Capone, and now Bubbly Noodle, and a few other folks I'm probably forgetting. Hannah was here earlier, but otherwise, thank you guys so much for making E3 such an amazing experience. And I didn't say that, by the way. I would grade E3 overall this year like a 7 out of 10. Yeah, 6 or 7 out of 10. like a C plus, I would say, which is funny because if you average out all of it together, that's what it averaged out to. I had like 3 C's, 2 B's, and 1 A. So yeah, C plus overall. That's what I would grade E3. So it was top tier okay. But the Xbox and Nintendo shows were where it was at. So Nado, you lose subs but gave more content? How's that work? I don't know, man. I have a lot of Ghost Anime people that still haven't bothered to go to West Side Otaku yet. And there's probably a lot of flag waivers that were like, I don't know. I have no idea, man. So I'm doing YouTube for fun these days, though, anyway. So it's all good. But appreciate you. See ya in other stuff, being in a new West Side Otaku video, Twitch, and patrons. We're going to have a game day Saturday, hopefully, if I can muster the goddamn energy. So appreciate you guys. Talk to you later. Be geek. Be proud. And no forget. Be awesome. Thank you.